So, with me here today to talk about the CAS report, the landmark report that was tabled in the UK in April of 2024, is our friend and columnist and author, Barbara Kay. Welcome, Barbara.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, it's a pleasure, Barbara. You have incredible insights as you write columns in different publications, including the National Post. So I'm a great admirer of your work, as you know, Barbara. And you've written some very thoughtful responses to your analysis as you've read the incredible report done by Dr. Hilary Cass, an esteemed pediatrician in the UK. She chaired an independent review on gender identity, and she's played many clinical roles. And that report, why is this report so significant for Canadians?
Well, I think it's significant for all societies in which the gender affirmation model has become the norm. It's one of those meta reviews that is undertaken with complete objectivity, that cannot be faulted for bad parameters or faults in methodology or any of that. Took 4 years to complete. There was an interim report in 2022 that presaged the final conclusions that were going to be, but we already knew in 2022 what conclusions they were beginning to draw. So it rightfully had a big impact, and objective reviewers of the CAS review were okay. We have to take this extremely seriously because it actually ended in the JIDS clinic, as it was known, the Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic, which was the centralized place where all gender confused children were referred to, being closed down, and gender treatment now being parceled out on a regional basis. So when you close down a large agency like that, it means that there were really serious deficits in the way that the treatment was going. And we do know there were whistleblowers who prompted concern throughout the National Health Service that something needed to be
Well,
done.
it's really a profound report. The CAS report is that, as you said, even closed down these specialized centers for gender transition, and so we're going to go through the CAS report and kind of what this means for Canadians and Canada. But I kind of wanted to back up for a second. That relates to, Barbara, if you can help us understand, how does the process work generally in Canada, where we have this so-called gender affirmation model? Because sometimes it's confusing. We hear about puberty blockers, and we hear about hormones. We even hear about surgery where body parts are taken off or changed. I mean, how does this really work in practice, like from a kind of a simplified way?
Well, in practice, we only have to look back to the 1980s when the foremost treatment center in Canada was at CAMH in Ontario, and it was run by Dr. Zucker. So he was extremely resistant to any rush to affirmation or belief in the idea that a child of 4 or 5 or 6 could know with certainty what their permanent sense of their own gender was going to be. And that was considered to be a responsible way. I consider it responsible today, and so do many people who have, pushed back against the gender affirmation model, on the other hand, is based on an ideology that wants to see gender as extremely fluid, that wants to see sex as a biological sex, not as immutable with inherent characteristics, but as something that is fluid in itself, and that subjective feelings of gender identity are as important or more important than one's biological sex, and must therefore be treated with extreme deference, and that includes very young children. So the idea is that if you do not take very seriously a child's, when they tell you, I think I'm supposed to be a girl, if they're a boy, or
Hmm.
vice versa,
Hmm.
that this would be very traumatic to them, that this is child abuse, that it's as bad as conversion therapy for gay children or gay adults trying to convince them that they're not really gay, that they're, and to try to get them to conform to heterosexual models. And as Dr. Cass would say, exploration is not conversion.
Yeah. So the point is that these are complex cases
Yeah.
where a child or youth presents themselves and says, "Hey, I'm confused about my gender. I think there may be a mismatch between my body and what I'm feeling inside." So this creates a lot of distress, and they are complex, as you said, Barb, because there's a lot of different variables involved here. And I think the Cass report gets to that. But the point is that in this context today, in 2024, as there has been children, certainly I'm familiar with some cases where a child will go to a specialist
Mhm.
and they will be put on puberty blockers. What do
Yes.
puberty blockers do then?
Well, puberty blockers are have been used in the past. They are medications that actually suppress uh, your body's natural processing into puberty and the changes that come with
Hmm.
the body. They also affect development in the brain. But now there is a sense, children are given a sense of urgency. And
Mm.
so they become, without knowing the side effects of puberty blockers, they're on board and their parents are on board for at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12, whenever some start quite early, starting in on these medications, which the therapists tell the parents are, this will buy us time so
Mm.
that the child has a few more years to decide if they want to, if continue or. But what the Cass review found was that 99, virtually almost 100% of cases of children starting with puberty blockers, they then go on to cross-sex hormones. And this is for girls taking testosterone and for boys taking estrogen, basically for a boy to feminize his body, for a girl to masculinize her body, the voice, the broadening of the shoulders, the hair on the body.
Hmm.
So once you're into cross-sex hormones, you've really crossed into a territory it's very hard to come back from.
Mm.
Um, and we've seen with detransitioners how they have said it's once your body is changing, and some of these are irreversible changes. The
Hmm.
voice, once it deepens, you can't undeepen it, even if. So that's so puberty blockers basically allow you to continue being prepubertal in your appearance
Hmm.
for a number of years, and then, of course, your peers have gone on without you. They've now gone through puberty, and you're in a kind
Hmm.
of different place, a no man's land in a sense.
Okay. So the gender affirmation model then is commonly used in a lot of countries, including in Canada. It
Hmm.
appears that once you have puberty blockers, it's a way to so-called buy time, as you say, so that you can come to grips with your gender, and try to get out of this what must be an awful kind of sense of distress.
Hmm.
And in that context, then you can move quickly to hormones and then ultimately surgery. So I think that, within that context, we had the Cass report was commissioned by the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. The Cass report definitively called out, in effect, the medical fraud
Yeah.
and experiments that were going on with the gender affirmation model. and proving that it is not evidence-based and that it's not serving those children. It's actually doing great harm. And so there's a lot of themes that I did want to go through with you briefly. And one is the whole theme that Cass believes that the children are not well served because a holistic model needs to be used. And I think you alluded to this, Barbara, that these children are being exceptionalized in the sense that they're being put aside outside of main healthcare, where normally there would be a team of professionals working with those complex cases, including psychologists, no less, that would look at the multiple variables involved in these cases. But instead, they've been kind of pushed off and bypassed through that kind of integrated system of healthcare and instead put on waiting lists for gender services. And then that just creates more distress. So those children were not really being served. So is that a key theme that struck you as well? Is the theme that we need holistic supports in healthcare for these cases?
Yes, she said, I liked her phrase where she said, exploration is not conversion, because the angle that these gender affirming therapists take is if you're exploring, then you're not trusting the child and you're trying to convert them. This idea that you would try to convert a child to have a gender in conformity with their biological sex is nonsense, and it speaks to the fragility of their own philosophy or their own theory that they're so nervous about a child being treated holistically. I mean, we have a law in Canada, as you know, that therapists may not, if a child presents with gender distress, they may not suggest to the child that there might be a possible other explanation other than the fact that they're in the wrong, that gender is the answer to their, changing their gender.
Yeah. No, it's absurd. So what is that law again, Barbara? Can you refresh our memories?
The conversion therapy law.
C-14, I believe it is.
Oh, is it C-14? Okay. So this is the law that was the entire government voted in favor of, conservatives as well as liberals and NDP, and I was very sorry to see that. You could be subject to violation of the criminal code according to that.
So what an incredible attack on really evidence-based healthcare practice that should be based on, again, serving the whole person. So, for instance, if someone presents themselves as a child or a youth as confused about their gender, you need to look at a multiple set of variables.
Without open discussion and debate, you're not thinking, nor are you free. Comment below. We'd love for you to join the conversation.